All right, welcome to another show, the Beyond Sets and Reps podcast. I got an outstanding guest, someone I've known for years and years, and we had a chance to reconnect. And now, Dr. Tommy Stallworth is here with us. Doc, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on, Pat? I appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate this opportunity.
This is fantastic, man. Your journey is something that's remarkable. The people who are out there listening and watching, I want them to know who you are. So tell them.
But again, this is going on year 20 in coaching, but started playing football at the University of Tennessee from 1997 to 2001, played linebacker there, had a chance to be a part of two SEC championships and a national championship, played with some great players, great experiences, great coaches more than anything, because that's what drove me to this profession. From there, I stayed there as a GA. And after there, I got my first coaching opportunity. 24 years old, coming straight out of grad school, got a head strength and conditioning position at South Carolina State. So at HBCU in Orangeburg, South Carolina, was a life-changing experience because if you can imagine going from the University of Tennessee to now to a 1AA black college, the resources weren't there, but the opportunity and the experience were there. And that's what I was always extremely grateful for. My mentor, one of my strength coaches from college, Roderick Moore, talked me into the position, and he literally had to help walk me through it because even for himself, having been a black college player at Morehouse, he understood the challenges that I was going to face. And so he always wanted to make sure that he was always accessible. But then that's when he kind of taught me the importance of networking. And so while I'm there at South Carolina State is when I kind of started to make my own network and meet some other connections. And so that's when I met, I would really call him a second mentor, Harold Nash, who's with the Dallas Cowboys now. I met him through Tom Shaw because Tom Shaw is one of the most respected speed coaches in the world. And so we were playing down in Orlando, and I had a chance to go down there and watch one of his training sessions and just pick his brain on speed training. And you know how it is when you're working with football players, everybody thinks of speed and track, but he knew how to break it down from a football standpoint. And it was just amazing to sit there and watch that as he did that. And then from there, I was able to transition to Grambling State, another head coaching opportunity with the legendary coach Rob Broadway. And now because I'm at Grambling, Nash took a greater liking to me because that was a Louisiana connection for him. And so he knew what that state was like. He knew what that program was like because of the rich history and the rich tradition. And so I was always extremely grateful for him because he could always take the time wherever he was, whether it be in New England or Detroit at the time, to always just talk to me and help me navigate that state of Louisiana. Because when you know how it is, when you're dealing with kids from certain states, you can't just lump all the kids from one state together. Louisiana, there's a northern Louisiana, a central Louisiana, and a southern Louisiana, and he had to teach me that. And so I was extremely grateful for just helping me learn that because, again, we're talking about beyond sets and reps. At the end of the day, this is a people business. And being able to connect with these players and these athletes from these different places was so beneficial for me because when you're at a black college, and for both of them, you're not just a head football strength coach, you're working with all sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my greatest stories during those times was being able to work with women's bowling. When I was at South Carolina State, I had to drive our bowling team down to Daytona Beach for a bowling tournament. And I just remember seeing the level of excitement that they had being there, but then how grateful they were that as a school administrator, as a representative of the university, I decided I was able to drive that 15-passenger van from Orangeburg down to Daytona and listen to their stories, but then even go through their bowling warm-up. Everybody has their different pregame deals, but when you get to a bowling tournament the Friday before, a lot of people don't realize they're going to test the lane and they've got their balls out. And so We actually did a competitive bowling match because my family's bowlers. And so being able to have that bond with those ladies at Grambling State and at South Carolina State were truly some of the most pleasurable moments from my time at both of those schools. And then from there, coaching happens. I always remember the line that Bobby Bowden once said: there are two types of coaches. There are those that will get fired and those that have been fired. And not necessarily that I was fired, but there was a coaching change and I wasn't retained. But that did give me a chance to go to Mississippi State and work for Matt Bayless, and who's an awesome, awesome individual. You talk about a person that loves kids, and again, you see him, the way he loves on players. It challenged me to even love on players even more, to go beyond coaching, to really get to know these kids, sit down with them, spend time with them, and you just appreciate how much he poured into them, because it made you have to pour into them that much more. But it created some lifelong connections with the players there. One of my favorite players down there at the time was Preston Smith, because Preston and I are from the same area, Stone Mountain, Georgia. He went to Stevenson High School, which was literally the high school behind my neighborhood. And so that was always one of those special connections that, everybody always takes pride in where they're from. And you know how it is. The kids from Florida take pride in being from Florida. Always no ball like Florida. Kids from Texas, kids from California. But now in the SEC, you can't argue about the kids from the state of Georgia. And so we always used to mess with other people. And, but that was a great relationship to have and a great opportunity there. When Coach Bayless left, we had a coaching change. And in the process, I saw that as an opportunity for me to step out and pursue other opportunities. And so from there, I went to North Carolina State with Jason Bell-Camp, another extremely smart individual. And I'm talking about a man who, not only is he a great strength coach, he was a great friend and a great person to me, so much so that our kids end up being in the same school. We end up coaching the travel ball together. Our wives were the team moms. And so we could literally leave the building, go to a baseball practice, and not even talk about anything work-related. And so that's when, for me, you start to kind of morph your mindset about the profession and understanding the importance of family, the importance of working with truly good people. Because you and I both know there are plenty of smart individuals in coaching. There are plenty of people that know how to say the right things, and there are plenty of people that are connected. But ultimately, it's those people that are good people to work with that make your job worthwhile. And so while I was there with him, we got real close and, again, learned a lot from him. And in that process, he was able to help me build a connection that led to another head job for me. So when Coach Bell-Camp was not retained at North Carolina State, I transitioned with him. And so I went to Texas Tech with Coach Rusty Witt. And this was a great opportunity because Coach Witt is a man who literally served this country. People will see him on the sideline and think that it's animation, but no, that man laid his life on the line for our country. And so him coaching kids is genuinely a passion for helping them, because he saw the worst side of society, where kids, the same age as some of our players, having to give their lives for this country. And so I just always remember hearing those stories, but seeing how he poured into those kids to help them understand that not to take advantage of the opportunities that they have, but to be grateful for them, because there's somebody that's the same age that's fighting for this country and giving their lives, and some that might not make it home. And that was just a very challenging and a very heartfelt message to those kids each and every day when he poured into them. But from a football side, I'm there, and Cliff Kingsbury is the head coach. And you know how it is, the relationship between a head strength coach and a head football coach. That was my first time really seeing it on that kind of level, because Cliff was the type of person that, regardless of what people may think about the air raid and all this stuff about the football, Cliff was a weight room guy. He was there at 5 o'clock in the morning. He had his iPod. And then let's go back, Pat. You know how the little bit of white iPad, he had his own. He walked in, he knew how to connect it. And we all, we were the Breakfast Club. Us and some other coaches, we'd work out at 5 and he doing his thing. But Cliff still loved to train hard as a former quarterback. And because he trained that way, it was required of all the other quarterbacks that he ever coached, whether it was at Houston, it was at Texas A&M, and now at Texas Tech, and we had Pat Mahomes. And so, you hear the taboo of quarterbacks shouldn't do this, quarterbacks shouldn't do that. Well, when the head coach says this, and the head coach believes and is an example of it, you better believe everybody else was on board. So another highlight of my career was being there for Pat's one off season, because Pat was a phenomenal baseball player. But Pat, going into that off season, knew he wanted to commit to football, because in his mind, if he did what he had to do, he was going to leave. And that day, that last testing day before we start spring practice, Pat Mahomes is under the bar of 345 one time. Boom. And you just like, yeah, okay, I'm not listening to gurus anymore. I've lived and watched this kid do that. Again, now I'm at Mississippi State. Watch Dak Prescott work and train hard, and Jacoby Brissett, who loved to hang clean. So you got all these taboos, but now as I'm working with these high-level quarterbacks, it's like, okay, these gurus are saying that, but if you're not toes in the ground, boots on the ground like you and I are, strength coaches with these athletes and these players, you understand that sometimes there's just a fluff and a misperception that people don't know any better. And so, you go through that. From there, I went to Fresno State. That was my first D1 head job. And living in California was a great opportunity. And it was a learning experience, because everybody's going to look at the record, but sometimes you have to realize these head coaching opportunities are very limited. So you can't be afraid to take that kind of step and chase your dream. I knew that they had struggled the year before, but in my mind, I believe in Coach Tim DeRuiter, who is an awesome man to work for, who had my support, who supported me and our staff. And unfortunately, even though we came short, it was a great opportunity to work with him and see how he operates a program because of his background, having worked and coached at Air Force Academy. From there, I went to Western Kentucky. I was fortunate enough to land on my feet with another head job, and Mike Sanford Jr., who was coming from Notre Dame, and this was his first head coaching opportunity. And so I wanted to be the best support system for him, because as you and I both know, when you're that head strength coach, there are things that you see coming that you're just trying to protect your head coach from. There are so many things that they're dealing with that ultimately you don't want them to get overloaded. And if you can help in any way possible, maybe it's going to do a breakfast check or just walking a kid to meetings and talking to him before and preparing him or consoling him even after a tough meeting with a head coach, whatever it may be, you want to help that head coach as much as possible to help so that they know that you got their back. And while I was there, it was a year and a half into our time there. Marcus Paul, who was, and rest in peace, Marcus Paul, another great mentor, another great man in our profession. When he was leaving the New York Giants to the Dallas Cowboys, he recommended me for the position with the New York Giants, and my first time in the NFL. And so, when you're on the outside end, you're always hearing these things about the NFL. Oh, they don't train hard. Their players are high maintenance. Players aren't coached, And so I was real hesitant. And now I played linebacker in college, but when you think about the New York Giants, you think about Lawrence Taylor. You think about Carl Banks. You think about Gary Reasons and Harry Carson's a former SC State alum. And so that was what drew me to that opportunity, just to go work for one of the blue blood franchises and some of the greatest owners in all of professional sports in the Mara family. And so while there, I worked for Aaron Wellman and another one of my mentors, Craig Fitzgerald. Fitz is such a knowledgeable strength coach It's no accident that he's had the number of jobs that he's had, but he's had the success that he's had at all of them. And so I appreciated him retaining me during that coaching change and working with me and helped sharpen my tools so that when I had the opportunity to become a head strength coach, whether in college or in the NFL again, I was prepared. And so Fitz and I, we got so close. And to this day, he's a man that if I send him a text, I know he's going to respond. And you know how important that is in this business, that there are some people that they're only going to do for you while you can do for them. Mm-hmm. But Fitz is just the opposite. He's always willing to help you as much as possible, regardless of what you have for him. And so I just always make sure to send him a random text just to tell him thank you, because good people in this business are hard to find, and they're very, very worthy of the flowers that you give them when you meet them. And so while there, Fitz was able to help me land my dream job. I became the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. And again, I'm from Stone Mountain, Lithonia, Georgia. I now got a chance to coach the team, my hometown team, the team that literally I grew up going to Fulton County Stadium for, watching them play on that dirt field, watching Deion Sanders and Brian Jordan and Scott Case and Jesse Tuck, like I can still remember to this day. And so I'm now leading that program in that strength conditioning department. And so I'm extremely and eternally grateful to Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot, Rich McKay, and Arthur Blank for that opportunity, because at that point where most people will say my career is done, that was just a start for me, because I wanted to be a part of that Super Bowl championship for the Falcons. Even though they've never won one, to know what it would mean to this city, to these little kids, to these high school players, to every fan that remembers Fulton County Stadium, the Georgia Dome, and now the Mercedes-Benz, what that championship would mean to this area would be beyond anybody's worthwhile. And so it was just a great opportunity to be able to work there. And so, we had a coaching change, and there was some things that happened, and I was not retained. And so now I'm in the high school ranks. And now I can say this, Pat, this is one of the most enjoyable jobs that, regardless of my other places, this job is so enjoyable because now you're looking at kids. We've got 8th graders that are coming to 9th grade that are coming to high school. When we're in college, we're dealing with the kids coming from high school that are now coming to college, and they have some idea, but they really don't know. Then when you're a pro, you're dealing with the kids from pros that are coming from college to the pros. But now when you're dealing with these kids, wow. I mean, the look in their eyes when they come in the weight room and they see some of these guys moving weight, or they see an exercise in their mind, Coach, how am I going to do that? Coach, I've never done that. And then the first time they get that one rep, you can just give them a hug and tell them, hey, man, it's just a start of it. So every time there's something that they've never done, you can plant that seed of confidence that, hey, man, all it is a little work. All it is a little confidence, a little trust. But every time they do something, you can generally give these kids a hug, and they wrap their arms back around you, because some of these kids and their support system, or the lack thereof, that's what they're missing. That's what they need. And so you just generally enjoy pouring into these kids each and every day, because public school kids are getting beat up on social media and everywhere so much that it's so much negative around these kids that when they finally get someone to show them some type of love and appreciation, you can feel them just kind of relax and take a deep breath because they've been beat up so much. And so, I heard this saying, like, it's hard to have a bad day when you love your job. And as you know, when you're a strength coach, when you're on that floor, there's no such thing as a bad day. Regardless of who's coming in, and we know our players, we know the body language. We know how to read those certain guys when they're about to walk in, like, okay, let me crack my neck. This is going to be that kind of day with this guy. Yep. Okay, we got to go there. But for that one guy, you know that the rest of these guys that are in this room that are going to work, you still got to tell them thank you. You still appreciate how hard they're working, because they're doing it for themselves, because they want to be the best. And so you you and the staff put this wonderful plan together. And as it's coming together, it's the piece of the puzzle. You can kind of shake your head like, this is a great day. And so that's where I am now.
Man, okay, okay. I got to help out the listeners right now because they wondering what just happened. You just got knocked the Dr. Tommy Stallworth just brought it to you. All right, that's the podcast right there. Like, I got a couple more questions, but anything that you want to know about what it takes to be successful in this profession, he just told you. That's the blueprint. That's the blueprint. He talked about people. He talked about a few places. He talked about those interactions with those key people. The names that he dropped, if you just go out and get some association with some people that are kind of like a Roger Moore Nash, Harold Nash, Rusty Witt, Marcus Paul, Wellman Fitzgerald, man, Veltkamp, Bayless, man, come on, man. Come on. You've been around some great ones. Now some people need to be talking about you, right? Like, okay, I've been around Tommy Stallworth, and man, just talk to. I do want to know about this. You were college, you were pro, now you're high school. Like, help somebody out because you start off early in this profession and you got this idea about what you want to do and how it's going to go, and you're going to write down your plan and your goals. And it's like, no, other people's plans, other people's goals going to impact your journey too. So talk to them about that.
You said something right there because I remember when I went to South Carolina State, man, I'm full of piss and vinegar. I'm fresh off of, I'm coming from the SEC. These kids don't care about that. The head coach I worked for, Buddy Pugh, didn't care about that. Some of those coaches that I worked in those other Olympic sports didn't care about that. It was about their team. And so what I learned at that point was, even though I have the title of head strength conditioning coach, you understand the importance of support staff. And so we're in a support staff role that if the head coach says he wants X, Y, and Z, I need to use my knowledge, my information to build the plan that's most suitable and satisfying to them to support them in their mission for their team. That's it. Regardless of how I may feel about something, if my head coach says, I want X, Y, and Z, guess what? I'm going to find a way to provide them X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that's amazing. Something we talked about in prep for this podcast is and we're not going to be able to get to everything. So there's going to be a part 2. High performance model. What are your thoughts on what is it? Explain to some people, they may not know what it is, and why should we be talking about that?
Pat, because it's I don't want to say it's the new thing, but in our profession, there are certain buzzwords and terms that kind of get thrown around and kind of come out every so often. You remember how it was at one point when those stability balls came out, core training. That was the thing. I mean, then I can't. There was the P90X fad, and then there was, and no disrespect to the military training, but the military training that every program had. There's always these things, but that high performance model is now the term that's being thrown around. But what we know as strength coaches is that model has always existed because strength coaches, athletic trainers, nutritionists have always had to coexist. We are all part of an ancillary support system to help these players. And so regardless of if it's the Australian model where a sports scientist is in charge, or if it's the European model where a doctor / athletic trainer is in charge, the communication that is necessary between athletic trainers, strength coaches, nutritionists, and now even sports psychologists cannot be understated or be underestimated. Those conversations, that loop has got to flow each and every day because of the people that we're dealing with as far as the players. Those lives, those incidents, things in their lives change by the minute. And so what we know also is that knowledge is power. And so if one person knows something about an athlete, we all have to know it so that we can be able to be the best resource for that player. Our goal in a high performance model is literally to create a bubble and a shield around each one of these individuals so that they feel that they're getting the best care possible with the most support possible, because we want to give them the best situation and the best care to make sure that they're successful in their endeavors.
So that's happening in some places, but it's not happening in all places. Why is it not? What stops some people from operating that way? That collective, that collaborative, that communication, that ongoing conversation, that respect for one another, that sharing of information. Like, what stops people? What's stopping it from happening?
You touched on a word right there: respect. What we know is that knowledge is power. And so if I know something and I can hold this information and then be the first one to get to a coach or get to in the NFL, a GM or someone, to let them know that I got this, I know this information. Don't worry about the rest of the team. Then I look like I'm on top of something. I get the attention for myself. But if we're all collectively in this model together, it doesn't matter who has what information, as long as the information is shared and relayed, because I respect my colleagues and we're all in this together. All of our jobs, our livelihoods, our names are on the line together. And so we've got to make sure that whatever is out there, long as we don't have to be best friends, but we have to be respectful professionals. And when we talk about being professionals, that means doing our job at a high level for the athletes that we serve and for the coaches and organizations that we work for. So it is that respect factor.
And when there's not that respect factor, whose job is it to get things corrected? So, and I know at different levels it's different people, but this is happening at places. So how can you help somebody right now to get their ship moving in the right direction?
And it goes back to that respect word again, because part of the respect is I'm going to tie in that word humility. I will defer to an athletic trainer. I will defer to someone else just to let them know, hey man, it's not about me. If you want that spot, if you want that lead role, if you want that attention, here's the information. Take it, do what you got to do, but make sure it gets to the proper people so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page.
So we're going to stop it right there, because this half hour flew by. I can't believe it. So we're going to do a part two if you're cool with that. And
Yeah.
in part two, I want to talk about working in the NFL. I want to talk about the NFLPA and surveys and things like that, and player coach relationships. I want to, and then I want to hear a little bit more about how this high school thing is going, because that is an avenue for college strength and conditioning coaches to think about, or even professionals. So you went college, professional to high school. Some people say it's dropping down. It is not dropping down.
Not at all.
It is not dropping down. It is, you might have to pick your game up as you go to high school. So, but I want to hear more about that. So, is there something you want to leave our listeners with? Yeah, anything you got for them?
Well, no, more than anything, again, I'm a man and a believer of giving people their flowers, and I want to give you your flowers, because the name of this podcast is deeper than what people realize. And for me deciding to pursue my sports psychology degree was because I knew what you were doing. You and I remember being a young strength coach at Grambling, and you interviewed me, and I was so impressed by what you did. You became a distant mentor because I always watched your move, but I also remember you talking about the importance of sports psychology and dealing with our athletes. And so, yeah, writing a program, everybody's got their sets and reps, relative intensity, prevalence chart. But at the end of the day, when we're dealing with these people and the age ranges of people that we're dealing with, we have to be able to navigate their issues, their struggles to make them the best athlete possible. So it's beyond the sets and reps, as you named this so eloquently. So I just wanted to give you your flowers.
Man, I appreciate that. Coach, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Great catching up with you. Uh, we'll work on getting it rescheduled part two because, we got to talk about the PhD as well.
Oh,
And that
absolutely.
process and how that helps you as a coach and where you see it helping you in the future. This is something, the future of strength and conditioning is changing just like college athletics is changing. And the transfer portal, NIL, all of the different rulings that are coming out from the federal legislation, like college athletics, the way we knew it, no longer exists. And I think what you've done, your resume you've built, your background sets you up, but it provides a great example for those other young strength and conditioning coaches out there. So I just want to say thank you and give you your flowers.
Well, I appreciate that, Pat. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah. All right. Take care, man. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.